Now we're going to transition into our next conversation. Okay, we have everybody here, and we will welcome up a conversation from ICE to Insight, how technology is driving performance and innovation at the NHL. And we have our very own Young Gilk, who's our global president of customer success for Americas here at SAP, and Dave Lahansky, who's the executive vice president of business development and innovation at NHL. Welcome for this fireside chat.
Even got a chair here. Yeah.
From the arenas to the ice to the fans, the NHL is using SAP technology to enhance the game of hockey and protect its roots. Innovative puck and player tracking technology captures massive amounts of real-time game data from the action on the ice. Coaches instantly see this data on the SAP NHL Coaching Insights app, helping them make quick in-game adjustments on the fly. Behind the scenes, the SAP NHL Front Office app helps general managers and hockey ops streamline roster planning, contracts, and salary cap decisions in one place. The NHL.com stats page also runs on SAP with over 100 years of game data. Customizable filters and dashboards let fans explore the performance of current teams and players, as well as legends from the past. And beyond the game, the NHL is advancing its environmental sustainability efforts with SAP, helping better understand its carbon footprint and reduce ecological impact. With SAP, the NHL is making hockey even more exciting and sustainable for generations to come.
Well, now. Good. Show of hands, how many hockey fans are here? Who likes hockey? Very good. And who actually has a great memory about hockey, either from watching something on TV or something that you saw live? Who has a good memory? Anything good? You don't have to say it, just a hand. I'm not going to call you out on it. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those memories are actually powered by technology, maybe more than you think about today. And that's exactly what we would like to discuss today here together with Dave. And I'm actually happy to have you, and thanks so much for spending this time. It's really about talking about technology and the impact on the NHL itself, and the impact on hockey and how this is evolving. And yeah, I think this is going to be a super excited conversation. So thanks so much for being with us here, Dave.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Good. So if you, how would you describe the journey of the NFL over the past decade? And specifically, when you think about technology, what difference has that made in the last couple of years?
So the biggest area of change from a experience standpoint that's being driven by technology is our ability to capture the game, to capture what happens on the ice. So it wasn't that long ago where we had human beings with pencils and paper sitting up in the rafters, writing down all of the events and taking notes for everything that happened. That then shifted to us taking away the pencil and paper and putting a laptop in front of them, but it was still the same process. And here we are today where there are multiple tracking systems, multiple camera systems, automating event detection to create a massive amount of new data. So we went from, sort of thousands of data points to tens of millions of data points per game. So clearly now the information we're gathering from every game that's played is unlike anything we really even expected from just a few years ago. The challenge that comes with that is, what do you do with all this data? How do you turn it into something that's meaningful, that's going to affect your business?
No, absolutely. And I think you share that challenge with many other companies out there. I think you just have a lot of data, actually. And I mean, in general, NHL is always known for speed and precision on the ice. And so how did you deploy the same kind of mindset now when you approach innovation, and how has SAP technology specifically helped with that?
So there are maybe two questions in there. I'll get to both of them. Maybe I'll set the groundwork for the second one. So the speed of hockey, it's obvious when you watch it, the players move fast. They're skating 25 miles an hour. The puck moves fast. It can go 100 miles an hour. That's a challenge from a technical standpoint. How do you track all that really fast movement? The real challenge, though, when we set out to sort of figure out what do we do with all this data, is that a hockey game is 60 minutes of actual play, right? And when there's a stoppage, it's about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you're right back into play. As often used, but as a contrast, an NFL game has about 15 minutes of actual play and 2.5 hours of time in between those plays, where you
Lots of commercials.
A lot of commercials for sure, but they do a very good job of telling stories during that time, showing you statistics, replays, highlights, comparisons of players. We don't have that opportunity to do that. We don't have the stoppages. So from a very early stage, we knew that if we were going to create new content, new stats, new metrics, new analytics, we'd either have to be able to process it and visualize it to air within a 15-second window, or in true real time as an overlay to the game as it's being played. That's a challenge that most of the sports don't have. In addition to the volatility of the players, which is another thing I'll talk about when we get into one of the other solutions. But it's the only professional team sport where players can change during play as much or as little as they want, whenever they want. Any other sport, there's a stoppage. So you know who you're tracking, you know who you're following, you know who you're watching. In our game, that happens randomly. And the way the game is usually captured from a TV standpoint or a broadcast standpoint, the camera moves this way. There are players over here you don't see. When it goes back this way, they may still be there. They may be gone. So there's a whole other challenge. And it's all to say, if you can do it for hockey, you could do it for any other sport, because the speed and the volatility is sort of unmatched. Now, from an SAP standpoint, I say this unequivocally. I've said it on other panels. There is no better example of how we've been able to take advantage of this and solve this complex solution than the SAP NHL Coaching Insights app. So for those of you who don't know, if you're going to watch a playoff game, maybe that'd be great if you did. You can see behind the bench, even in that video, behind every bench at every NHL game, there are 3 iPads positioned there. And on those iPads, there's an application that SAP built with some collaboration with Apple, that's delivering real-time data and video to the players and the coaches. And real-time meaning you'll see, he got knocked out by your team last night, but Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in the world, is one of the heaviest users. When he comes off the ice, he comes over the board, the first thing he does is grab that iPad and sit down and start to go through what happened there. That's true real-time. And that app is processing, 1,000 points per second on every player, even more on the puck, into statistics, metrics, analytics that then get visualized and propagated into a turnkey kind of user interface that they're getting, that's been custom built for a live game scenario when you don't have time to scroll through and sort through things. And it is the point at which we have the highest risk. If anything's not right, and you're doing it live in a game for a coach and a player, and they make a decision off of it and it's not right, you're dead.
That's fascinating. And I was just going to ask that because, we talk a lot about insights to action, and many companies, they collect all this data just like you, and then they have it and they might get some insights from it. But then how does that inform decision making, which in general often takes time, right? But during this game, as you said, you don't have time. How has that influenced decision making really? Do you see that? Is that really happening, that the coaches and the team maybe take this data and change anything in their strategy and their tactics in the moment?
Absolutely. Yeah, that happens every night. So one of the unique things about hockey is there's only 5 players on the ice and you're rotating through players. So there's always a decision for who do I put on the ice? Who do I put in on the ice based on the situation of the game? And who do I put on the ice based on who the other team is putting on the ice? And even within that, if they know that they want you on the ice because you're the best player, do they want me on the ice with you, or do they want someone else on the ice with you? So the app is looking at, it's amazing. The app is looking at all the historical data for all the players playing in that game. They're looking at all the data from that season, or in the playoffs, that series. And then it's looking at the real-time data for what's happening in the game. So you may be the best at something, but it may tell you that tonight it's not so good. You're losing a lot of face-offs when you usually win a lot of face-offs. You may want somebody else in the game. So all the analysis that's happening within milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, is really incredible. And the coaches are absolutely using it to set their lineup and make decisions as the game progresses.
Fascinating. So let's switch gears a little bit from the team coaches to the fans, and maybe ask here to the audience again, who has ever checked statistics on their phone during a game? Across multiple sports, probably not only hockey, but I think everybody kind of does that. And the question is, how has the technology now also changed how you interact with the fans, or how did it impact the fan experience?
So there are probably two ways, which also line up to the way most leagues talk about their fans. You have casual fans and you have avid fans. From a casual standpoint, for us, it's been a huge success with regard to helping people who aren't necessarily familiar with hockey to better understand the game. Again, there's not a lot of time to tell stories during the game. So a lot of people, when they first come to it, they're sort of like, it was fun and exciting, but I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, what am I watching here? Like, so to be able to explain why one player is better than another player, or one team is better than another team in different scenarios, is way easier when you have more data to use to tell the stories. The other way, it's for an avid fan, they want more. They want to go deeper. Like, tell me why, what's happening, and what are the reasons behind it? What am I not seeing? So the ability to create new storytelling from all the data was also hugely impactful with regard to the engagement that we were getting from our avid fans. And so, but look, to figure all this out, you need expertise in the subject matter. Okay, so we get hockey, whatever, but you need partners who are committed to figuring out, piloting, testing, learning to ultimately get to that place. And thankfully, we've had huge success. And the partnership started with a vision for redefining the fan experience. The first SAP NHL engagement was around the complete redesign of our stats section on NHL.com. And it was done, one, with a vision for these tracking systems that were going to come. So we knew we were going to get all this new data. And two, an understanding that statistics in hockey hadn't changed for 100 years. And if you went to our site at that time, it kind of looked like we cut and pasted an Excel spreadsheet on the stats section, and that it needed to be more dynamic, and it needed to be interactive, and it needed to be more explanatory. And that's what we were able to build.
No, it's very interesting. And I mean, if I understand correctly, you're also saying, I mean, you always get the feedback also from the app, right? What the user is using, what are they clicking on, what are they looking at? And that helps to inform them again to continue to offer more features and functions than to the fans. So continuously evolving basically.
Absolutely. It's push and pull. You're getting all this information. But you also know what's coming that the fan doesn't know. So there's a little bit of what's the famous line? If you had asked Henry Ford, what do people want out of transportation, they would have said a faster horse, right? They couldn't see the car. So a big part of our relationship was built on trust around these tracking systems that were going to come and to give us all this new data to try and really see the vision for where we were going to go. You couldn't ask a fan about that because they'd never seen it before.
So we talked about the players and the coaches and how they use this data in real time. We talked a little bit about the fan experience. So let's talk about the organization, the NHL itself. You are also a very data-driven company in that sense. And maybe you can share a little bit, how are you using data, and what was maybe also a surprise about, things that you could be doing that you even didn't think about before?
So there are two areas to that. The first one I'll talk about is still on the team side, but it's not about how all the data is changing decisions on the ice. It's how it's changing all the decisions off the ice. And so with the success of the Coaching Insights app that we built together, I mean, literally from that time, I think the overwhelming majority of the data solutions we've been building have been on SAP's BTP platform. And an extension of that app that's built for the iPad was a second app that we built called the SAP NHL Front Office app. And you saw some of the imagery on that site. And so the vision was, how can we centralize all the really important data that we know every single team needs, times there are 32 teams, all 32 of them need, through one really turnkey application that has the highest level of security and analytics capabilities. So all the contract information for every player, all of the salary cap information, injury information, when there's an arbitration hearing, all of the results from that have all been aggregated, curated with the game data, because that's there too, because the general manager needs to know performance on the ice. within one application that's been built from a UI standpoint to allow the scouts, the coaches, the general managers to manage the salary cap, the payroll, the roster, all the moves, transitions, trades all throughout the season. And it's like anything. In the beginning, there was some skepticism, like, wait a second, like, don't get involved. I know what I'm doing here. Even if it's born off of Excel spreadsheets and Word documents, it's mine. But it's been a huge success, and we're now taking it to a whole nother level. As far as the league ourselves, I think the panel before us was talking about artificial intelligence and automation. Of course, we're dealing with that in a pretty significant way. I think from an operation standpoint, from a workforce management standpoint, from a finance standpoint, we've extended our partnership with SAP, and it wasn't like hey, you're our partner, so can you help us here? We actually issued an RFP, and it was pretty clear who the best partner was in the space. But with regard to grow, success factors, S4, right, from a HANA Cloud public standpoint, we've completely migrated. We're kind of just got through that process, and we're already seeing incredible benefits. So, the notion of sort of consolidation and centralization with automation is sort of, those are the two terms that are really kind of proving to be common.
So you went through quite some modernization effort then for your underlying IT infrastructure to support kind of the next 10, 15 years of growth here for the NHL as a league or as an enterprise. So where have you seen the biggest impact from those modernizations, you would say?
So I think, the interesting thing about the NHL is we have, as our business is, we've got multiple businesses within sort of one business. We don't make a singular product. It looks like it's hockey, but we make consumer products that you buy, like jerseys. We sell events and tickets to those events. We have a content business. We have all of these different businesses. So thinking about the dynamics around whether it's finances, operations, logistics, for all of those different areas, it varies greatly. And so to be able to have a turnkey platform, to be able to do that for a small company and then share those insights easily through interfaces and dashboards and things that are getting updated in real time, allow for us to be a tight-knit group that's collaborating all the time way more effectively than before when we were trying to figure out how do we disseminate this information across all these different business units.
It's very interesting, and maybe, of course, we can't have a discussion here without talking about AI and looking a little bit into the future. Obviously, you are in competition. There's other sports. Everybody is competing for the fan experience. So where do you see this going now from here with AI as a brand new technology that opens so many new doors? What does that mean for the game, for the NHL? How is this evolution going to happen, or maybe a revolution?
Yeah. No doubt about it. I think there's a whole area that every company is thinking about: workflow optimization. How can we do the things that we do on a daily basis better? We'll put that over there. More efficient, exactly. But in sports, I think certainly from a content standpoint, which is really one of the main ways that people engage with the sport. You're watching it or you're consuming it through social media, right? You're sort of living through content to some degree. Is the ability to go from where we weren't too far from all that long ago, where you had one main experience that everybody would go and consume, sort of this one-to-many live broadcast, and everybody go watch it. And that still has value today, but when you think about the world from a content standpoint, with content creators and influencers and social media and podcasts and digital platforms, and it's completely fragmented. And it's not only fragmented from a distribution standpoint, it's fragmented from the experience standpoint. So the people that are going to those platforms aren't just looking for like a highlight the same way they've always seen a highlight. They want to see it in a different way, right? So the ability to customize content very efficiently and quickly is something that AI is really proving to have significant value for us. Meaning, a play happens on the ice. There's a great goal scored. You could take that highlight and distribute it to your app and your website and to your media partners. But you could also do that in Germany with German language and German sponsor on it. And you could also do it in an animated format and deliver it into Roblox. And So the way to take that one event and now turn it into multiple forms of content that drive better engagement because it's more meaningful to the person on the other side because of the platform that they're on and maybe where they live or how old they are. And it also creates more valuable assets for us that we could sell to advertisers and everyone else. So the AI impact on sports, really from a content standpoint, is going to be hugely significant. You're starting to see it, but it's still coming. And then the second way is to put more control directly into a fan's hands. And the term that we all use is, right, giving someone the ability to talk to data or talk to video. So if you're a fan and you have a favorite team or a favorite player or just favorite moments that you like from every game, maybe you like saves more than goals, the ability to now create your own sort of highlight reel is close. It's still expensive to do that right now. You're going to burn a lot of tokens, having millions of people create their own custom. So we're still trying to figure that part out, but that is right there, and that's coming in a big way. And before long, it will be every single person in this room, whether it's an NHL game or there's an amazing Champions League game last night, which most people are probably watching. You'll decide how you watch it on your device. It won't matter if it's a small device in your hand or a big one on the wall. What camera angle do you see? What audio feed do you get? Do you see stats, no stats, social media, betting, fantasy? That will all be built into one UI. And what's dictating what you see will be artificial intelligence.
No, it's a fascinating world, and you're in midst of it. So really, thanks so much for those insights. Very, very good. I think it's a time where we can open it up for the audience to ask some questions as well. I'm sure there are some. I see already the first hand over there.
Hi, thank you. Jason Rueda. So, pardon the question, but I work in security, so I'm always thinking of what can be done. Do you have any instances where teams have used that data or altered the data in real time to leverage a strategic advantage over what line they're going to put out, over what players they're going to put out, or what they're going to do from a trade perspective, things of that nature?
So the general answer to the question is yes, but not because they're sort of manipulating the system or the solution or the architecture. It's more because of the way that their team has interpreted or analyzed the data, right? And so it's like anything in any sport. There are some teams that are certainly more progressive, more committed to data analytics and metrics. And so they don't all look at it the same way. They don't have the same belief system. And it's fair to say hockey is sort of trailing here, right? Like, in baseball, obviously, with Moneyball and everything that's happened, that's like 30 years ago, right? And so we're just getting there. Part of the reason is because of the little story we were telling about speed and how hard it is to track things. It wasn't that easy to develop data analytics for hockey. It's kind of just coming to place now. But are there some teams that seem to have figured out in certain areas a different way to do things, even if it's just setting their roster? Yeah, it appears to be that way, but we'll see what happens going forward.
I have a question here.
Hi, my name is Daisy Martinez. I am not a sports person at all, but I am a marketer who works in data actually right under Ada's organization. So my question is, when you think about like all the data that is available, right? And in this case, your customer, your client is the people watching the games, engaging with your apps, right? What kind of like usages are being, or what kind of uses are available for like customer sentiment, whether that's like on social media posts about like certain players, about the apps and like the new upcoming features? Like, what does that look like in terms of usage for improvement of those or deployment of new things? And how is that looking for like the conversation of how AI is going to be using all that data to feed and automate those processes in the future?
That's a great question. You don't even know how great of a question that was. We're going through our budgeting and planning this week, and I was talking about this morning with someone, and we were debating a little bit. So it's happening more than ever, right? Sentiment analysis, understanding what your fan is not only doing, which we've all been doing that for a long period of time. You get ratings, you get sort of reports from ComScore, for web traffic, but understanding how they feel about what they're doing is just as important, and we're all now doing that. The reason why I kind of say, how great that is, there's another thing that's going on in sports here. Every sports league has to do this. We have always traditionally been a licensing entity. We've got this great IP, and we go to third parties. We go to broadcast companies and say, do you want to broadcast our games? Okay, pay us. We'll take your check. Now you go and broadcast the games. You want to build consumer products, T-shirts, jerseys, and hats? You can take our IP. You give us a check. You go build jerseys and hats. Video games. Even our app, like we had sold the rights to our app and our website to a third party. Disney streaming services had it. So in every aspect of our business, we were mostly reliant on third parties to build and promote the experience. Those days are kind of over. Not completely in some areas. We are shifting from licensing, universe to a direct-to-consumer model from a sports standpoint. We'll always have the ability to sell those rights if we want to, but no one's going to care as much about what our fans think as we do, and we've learned that maybe the hard way in some areas, because anyone who's paying a rights fee, yeah, of course, the number one objective is to recoup the rights fee and make more money at the lowest profit margin possible. They're not as interested as building new fans for the NHL, right, as we might be. So a lot of that now is coming in-house, and there is a major investment we're making sort of in data intelligence to some degree from a fan standpoint to not only capture what they're doing and how they're behaving, but to get the sentiment analysis, because we need to be the ones in control of the experience. And even if we're going to give it to a third party, we need to retain those rights to say, if we know our fans want something else, we're going to move in that direction no matter what. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, hello, I'm Alma from Oracle. And oh, somebody said don't say that because I'm at SAP, but I said it. Sorry. Yes. I'm very curious. I mean, I love data analytics. That is not what I do for a living, but especially in this day and age where we live, like one of the things that shocked me about ESPN, I grew up watching soccer with my family on TV, not a lot of analytics, but now I went to ESPN, I was watching or trying to keep up with the game. I'm like, whoa, all the data that's there now, it's pretty shocking. So I say that to say, what's the most exciting AI or analytics or a combination of both that you're seeing that's like gets you excited every day to come back and see it progress forward?
I guess the one that's the most exciting, though I have to admit, I'm not really sure where it's going, was we've always had a plan for what we could do with all the data from a statistics, analytics, storytelling, graphics, visualizations, enhancing the broadcast, helping betting, create new bet types, right? We never thought that the data could basically create a new experience, right? And so for the last 3 years, we've been producing these games. They basically look like cartoon games. They're animated digital visualizations where we're working with a third party who creates a virtual three-dimensional environment where they put a hockey rink and they take the data points from the players and the puck as it's happening, and they plot them on the data point on the hockey rink. So you could see in this virtual world the hockey game's taking place, but there's no video feeds, there's no anything, it's just data. And then around those data points, you basically can wrap animation to create an avatar for the players, an actual rink structure, and fast forward, lo and behold, you can watch a hockey game in an animated or virtual manner that doesn't have to have any cameras in the building. You're creating it off the data and you're watching it. And we just did one with ESPN around their IP around the Inside Out, the film franchise, and it was a huge success. So seeing that was kind of mind-boggling. It's like, wow, I never thought the data would be the experience. And there's so many things to develop off of that. Yes, we can continue to create like kids content, but the way that environment presents the ability to move, so from an analysis standpoint, to be able to break down plays and look at why the player was out of position and where they should be, there's a whole new area to explore there. And really from a virtual standpoint, where you don't need this on a two-dimensional screen, you can sort of scroll through, it's all coming from the data. So that's the most sort of like, wow, that was jarring. We kind of always expected like the way that the data would turn into stats, analytics, and stories, but that's probably the most exciting one. And again, I think all the leagues are seeing that and kind of now really starting to pay attention.
You have a question over there? It's good exercise for me.
Hi, Dave Morales from the advisory board at HITEC. I had a question around the statistics that you're collecting. to start to move more towards the actual person, meaning catching exhaustion, nervousness, and a few other things that the coaching could use, not necessarily share it with your competitor, but to make decisions about who to put in next, or are they, too nervous and therefore don't put them in, those guys. I've been wondering what you've thought about that.
So that's a very interesting topic. All of the teams in the NHL allow for and have some of the mandate wearable devices during practice and or when the teams aren't playing games if the player decides to wear it. But you need to collaborate with the Players Association to get their buy-in and approval on collecting that data. Now, other sports here too are a little further ahead than we are because what's driven the willingness for Players Association approval in football, let's just say, or baseball is another good one, it's repetitive use injuries. So then the Players Association is like, look, all of our pitchers are having elbow and shoulder issues. We need to learn more about this. Let's go ahead and approve the ability for teams to start to collect the data. There really isn't a repetitive use injury in hockey to like drive the same thing. But nevertheless, everyone has become way more comfortable now just because of where we are in the world and the way everybody looks at these data capture systems to tracking biometric data, heart rate, exhaustion, VO2 max, perspiration, right, hydration, all these things. So we're now testing with the Players Association different solutions for capturing that data. But you still need to, and we talked about this earlier, and that's where, I mean, SAP was incredible with us to go through the process of making sure we have meaningful use cases for the data before we just say, let's go pilot this and start collecting. So coaches, players, strength and conditioning coaches, trainers, we're talking to other leagues like the NFL to learn more about like what they're seeing and what they're tracking. So we can say, these are the 4 or 5 reasons why we're tracking it. We believe that if we know this thing, teams will be better off and they'll have a bigger tree for decision making. So we've got to get there and we're on our way, but we're not quite there yet.
And I think,
we have
it's
a
generally
question.
good advice, to always start with the why and the use case. We see that a lot in our discussions, often because there's so much possibility right now, right? People start just doing something, and then they wonder why don't they get really something out of it. So I think it's very, very good to always start with the why, find the right use cases, and go from there. Yeah.
We have a question from our online viewers. So when making decisions, what do you trust more? Data, intuition, or a mix of both?
Intuition.
I don't know if it's part of the question, but how do you
It's a very
ensure?
personal question. I want to talk to you about.
There's a second piece, I think, is a clarification. How do you ensure data accuracy is what is your process for verifying results?
All right, so there are 2 questions here. I'm going to answer both. The first one is it depends. For me personally, it's definitely a blend. You start with the data, and then somewhere in that process, I believe you kind of develop a sense of intuition. And like the word that we like to use is vision, or like you want a faster horse. You need to have a vision for what a car can be before you can just tell someone that's not the right way to go with the faster horse. We're going to build this thing that you can't contemplate. So the vision comes through the data acquisition, the analysis of the data, the sort of kind of, sourcing of that data you do with people who are knowledgeable and intelligent. But within that, you then develop your own intuition for where you need to go. That's sort of my belief, and that's how we do it at the NHL. But our 32 coaches feel very differently about it. Some of them say, no, data is empirical, and what it says is what it says. That's what we're going to do. And others say, I don't really care what the data says. I get a feel for every game, the way the player's playing, the way they're reacting, what's going on in the locker room, and that's how I make decisions. So we're still in a world where it's very much split, and I think that's a good thing, right, for all intents and purposes. And then the second question was it how much do we rely on the accuracy of the data? More than ever. Yeah, right. More than ever. There's more data than ever before. And I think we have a little tagline that we use now with all of our departments. There should be no movement without measurement. Like you're not taking the next step until you, to some degree, can measure what you're doing and what the impact was. So yeah, more than ever before.
Thank you, Margaret.
So You with the statement. I will never watch my Fly Guys the same again. Phillies Flyers game, Flyers fan.
By the way, more intuition there.
Okay.
More intuition with the Flyers. A lot of intuition.
But my question is to Jan, as we're heading into Sapphire, and you have such excitement from a customer in NHL, what would you say to those in the audience who are customers or potential customers around SAP's ability to deliver over and over again with data, with AI?
Yes, I think at the end, it is all about getting started from my perspective. And that's what we are seeing now, also since, this whole hype around AI has started. And sometimes people don't really know what to do and they have a lot of questions. But I believe it's all real. It's all there. Yeah, everybody has data. Yeah, and of course, this is a case where it's really tangible. But every company, every customer we have, they have data and they wonder what to do with it. And I believe it's just important to spend a little bit of thoughts about, okay, what do we want to get out of this? So this goes back to the why. Yeah? What are some of the use cases that might make sense? And then just get started. I mean, we are offering so many tools now and platforms and way above and beyond, what we are probably known for as an ERP and application provider. There are tools available to every customer that they can use and get started and build their use cases on top and see what comes out of it. And I think this is really a time of fast iterations. And we said that years ago, fail early, fail often, fail early. And I think that is more true than ever before. Yeah? So I can only encourage everybody to get started, to try things out and see if it delivers results, if it creates excitement, if people see there's possibilities to make their life easier, then go for it and put it in production. I think it's a similar approach that you took as well at the end. Too.
Absolutely. And I'll just say, we talked about a lot of products and services here. And if anyone's thinking, oh, these two companies constructed some big partnership and they agree to do all the stuff, that is not how it happened. We partnered to do one thing in the beginning, and that led to the next thing, the Coaching Insights app, and that led to the front office app, and that led to us. We didn't even talk about venue metrics and how we're looking at sort of how we utilize all of our energy and output from a carbon offsetting standpoint. Anyway, they all led one to the other because, to your point, we just started somewhere. We learned a lot about each other. We learned a lot about ourselves. We believed in the capabilities, and it led to the next thing, to the next thing, next thing. And here we are with, more than a decade of incredible success.
There wasn't a big master plan.
Not initially. Depends who I'm talking to. Sometimes they say there was.
This is one question that I have. The runner has a question. So recently, NHL, with a collaboration with SAP, got this business builder game, which is part of the community, and we're using 1.5 real data points of the NHL for a university alliance to the students to play business builders. And I think it's a great experience, not only for the fact that students will learn Analytic Cloud plus a lot of NHL, which I believe it. I just learned how the puck, the angle, things like that I never heard about it. So what is the involvement with the community in things like you do with all the data that you throw out besides the fans?
That's maybe one of the best examples, and we're thinking about expanding that program now to other territories and markets. And for those of you who don't know, the simple version of it, we've created like a school curriculum around data analytics and has sort of a STEM theme throughout it, using the NHL as sort of the content and the theme for all of it. And so, yeah, lo and behold, when you have a topic that's a little more interesting, just like the rote math, it becomes a little more engaging for students. So that is one of the best examples, and we're carrying that through to different levels and all the way across. I think, we're also spent a lot of time thinking about the youth hockey community. Most sports are sort of trying to figure out how they can sort of embrace youth sports and amateur sports as well, given all the sort of different ways that young people are spending their time. So we're trying to use the data as an alternate way of getting people interested in the game before they actually play the game or get exposure to playing the game.
We have one last question in the back, and then we're going to have to.
Gene Alvarez, Gardner Ranger fan. So as I look at the NHL's use of AI, I think there would be a coach out there who would say, I got all this data. Let me run simulated lineups for the game tomorrow, run thousands of them so that I can figure out how to win. So with that comes governance, right? Are they allowed to do that? So how are you putting governance around this data that you're collecting on the players?
Great question. I mean, obviously, there's only so much control we have to some degree. Once they have the data, which they all have access to the raw data, right? So there's a universal agreement that every team's going to get the data for their team, for their players, and the games that they play. Once they have that, it's kind of hard for us to figure out what are they actually doing it with it, who are they giving it to, where is it going. I think to some degree, there is a bilateral agreement in place for what they can and can't do with it that they all sort of agree to. So we do have some guardrails in place there. We also know that again, there's probably a more prevalent belief that if someone did that, it would not yield positive results necessarily, because you still have the balance of the intuition part of it, or the goalie that night just whatever, if he had a stomach bug, or his son's upset, so he's upset and he let in 5 goals. Like, those things are still real and they still matter. And so the coaches are generally, very receptive, but still don't believe that they're going to fully trust a model yet. That may change over time. We'll see as bigger sample set, more testing, piloting, it could potentially go in that direction, and we'll see what happens. The other part is, it's really hard to even think that you could game plan for every scenario that the other team is going to put in front of you, their line combinations, what they decide to do, how well their teams are playing, or players are playing or not playing. So there's still kind of this variability that exists, but it's a great question. And to some degree, there's just a trust between us and the clubs that they're not going to do the things they're not allowed to do, and they will do the things they're allowed to do. And if we start to think that there's patterns that are occurring, which we do, oversee, we'll get involved.
All right, time is flying, just at the hockey game.
Thank you very much. Thank you.